Hip Hop Marvels is powered by High Off Life LLC, highofflife.com, and Fat House. Hip Hop Marvels. We got it locked from the block to the comic shop.
This episode of Hip Hop Marvels podcast is brought to you by the Battlegrounds Games and Comics, the tri-state region's #1 source for video games, comic books, toys, and Magic the Gathering. Located at 2708 Airport Road, Dalton, Georgia, 30721. Drop in and tell them Hip Hop Marvels sent you and receive 10% off all comics.
Coming to you live from the Boom Bap Bullpen, it's DJ Dub Floyd, Brent Langley, Phil Nash, and Race Bannon. This is Hip Hop Marvels Podcast.
And we're here. We're finally here. Hip Hop Marvels, Episode 1. I'm your host, DJ Dub Floyd, the Blue Marvel, a.k.a. Beta Ray Billionaire. You know what I mean?
Brent Langley, a.k.a. Nothing. Also sitting in here with you, excited to be here. Episode 1, man, it's going to be crazy.
Yes, we got to get you a a.k.a.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll discuss it, man. But Hip Hop Marvelites, what's good? We're finally here.
Episode 1.
Episode 1. We're going to call this the one above all.
Right.
And it's significant because, there's a character in Marvel, the one above all. And
really?
He's pretty much like the God character. And going into this whole thing, this is going to be the #1. Like, this is the first show. This is the one above all. So I think it's a nice little play on words. You know?
I'm excited, man. Like, I'm a Marvel fan. I'm a rap fan, of course. Obviously, that's why I'm here, and it's all just going to mesh together. I'm thinking there's going to be so much stuff that we've been like talking about and working on that's going to come to fruition, hopefully very soon.
Stay tuned because we have a lot in store for you guys as far as guests, and we're going to do some contest giveaways, and we get some dope sponsors, and I mean we just got a lot going on, and it took months and months of preparation, but we are finally here. Episode 1, Hip Hop Marvels podcast. Check us out on SoundCloud. Website coming soon. And
what about Twitter? I know we got Twitter out there.
Oh yeah, I can't forget the social media networks. Twitter at Hip Hop Marvels and Instagram at Hip Hop Marvels.
Speaking of Instagram, I had an Instagram and then just basically abandoned it because there are no good pictures of me whatsoever. So I was just like, to hell with this. But no, I was talking with Gangsta Boo, who we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And she told me if I wanted to see some hot pictures of her to go on Instagram. And I happened to be drinking that night.
She's
so
setting a thirst trap up.
Yeah. Oh boy, I was parched too. I mean, I was like drooling. So I went on there, and sure enough, there was some pretty good stuff that's since probably long disappeared off the internet. But got back on solely for the purpose of just like staring at her.
So
it's not weird at all. But yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, this is Brent's Instagram. This is the whole reason why he decided to get back on the Instagram bandwagon, and that's to check out pics of Gangsta Boo.
Gangsta Boo, man, I'm in love with her. I swear, and she knows it too. Shout out to Gangsta Boo.
Shout out to Gangsta Boo.
I've got a skit with her that I've still never released. I think you heard it. Actually.
Yeah. The phone skit, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
So what else do we got in store for everybody on this first episode?
I want to get into explaining to everyone what we're about. Marvel has been a part of my life, and hip hop as well. And I found that there are many similarities between the two, between Marvel Entertainment and comics and hip hop culture. Going back to the early days of Nucleus and the Jam On It records back in the 80s, their artwork on their records were done by Bob Camp, who had done work for Marvel. Everything from that to references of Marvel characters in hip-hop. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there are a lot of folks at Marvel who respect the hip-hop culture as a whole also. And so with that in mind, I wanted to find the dialogue between hip-hop culture and between Marvel Entertainment and, keep the torch lit, if you will, and keep the conversation going. Another inspiration was the launch of the Marvel hip-hop variant covers, which were dope.
Oh yeah, I saw a bunch of them. One of my favorites was Eminem. Of course, I'm biased. He's like one of my favorite. Right. But I mean, they had the Eminem. I think did they have Busta Rhymes? It seems like they did. I'm not sure.
I'm not I'm not sure, but see, and that's
if they
good.
don't, they should.
That's good you hit on that point because it started with like, they did do one with Eminem.
Well, do you remember the Double XL issue?
Yeah, with the Punisher.
Yeah,
right.
when Relapse dropped,
Right.
they had a double issue, a special issue.
Right.
They had an Eminem comic.
Right.
Of Relapse.
Inside, right, yeah.
And I've still got that.
Yeah,
I've still got that magazine.
That was so dope.
That was the first time I can attest for sure to the fact that was the first time that I ever saw the coming together and the amalgamation, if you will, of hip hop and Marvel Entertainment, like
right, yeah,
and comics and stuff.
It went together so well. Kid and Play had their own when they had their little run in hip hop. They had a comic book series through Marvel, a Kid and Play comic. So Marvel has always been a part of hip hop. That's why I wanted to put this movement forward to kind of bridge the gap between. If there is a gap, I don't think there's.
I don't think there is. I think there's an intersection. I mean,
yeah, right. They cross paths, and I'm just trying to shed light on those paths being.
Well, the
crossed.
pot is definitely melting, if you ask me, in my opinion.
Right.
The cauldron is boiling, and it's all just coming together for a perfect recipe. And I think that's why I'm so excited about, again, this being the first episode. I mean, I'm really excited.
Sort of the seeds for this were planted a few months ago. I had the idea to do a couple of Run the Jewels, Tag the Jewels variants because I saw these murals being created around the world where artists are reinterpreting their iconic logo. So I thought, hey, let's do Marvel Tag the Jewels variants. Let's just do a couple of these right now. I reached out to Killer Mike and LP and their representation, and they were totally into it, and basically we did 2 covers. And I thought, we'll test the water with our toes here. Because I've always had this feeling that there's a lot of comic book fans, Marvel comic fans, and hip-hop heads, and a lot of hip-hop heads and Marvel comic book fans. There's just evidence everywhere. So I wanted to test that, and the response to this was off the hook. It was crazy.
Yeah, to further elaborate on that, MCs, they tell stories, just like comics do.
Yeah.
Comics tell stories. You have first appearances in hip-hop as well as comics. One notable first appearance is Tupac.
Yeah.
He came out with Digital Underground on their album. From there, he went on to do his own series, if you will, but his own album.
Right.
A lot of similarities.
Another similarity, it literally just dawned on me, and I'm surprised I did not think of that or this beforehand, is that both of these worlds portray larger-than-life figures.
Right.
And if you look at it, rappers are larger than life,
And like we were discussing earlier with AKAs and aliases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You have a rapper, they have their government name, but, they transform, they hit the stage, and they turn into this other character, you know? It's sort of like different characters in Marvel, how they transform into another being and they showcase their powers and abilities and talents.
Yeah. Well, they're an amped up version of like themselves, or it's just sort of a projection, I guess.
Right.
It's the best I could come to it. And it throws me right back again. A lot of people, if they listen to this, they're going to notice me name dropping Eminem and D12 in them a lot, but like D12 had their aliases. Eminem was Slim Shady. Proof was Dirty Harry.
Right,
There was
Swifty McVeigh. And,
so, I mean, there's an alias, and that's just like Spider-Man, Peter Parker. So, I mean, it's sort of like that in both of those different worlds.
There are going to be, Marvel fans that have no clue what hip-hop is, and we want this to be a learning curve at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
For Marvel fans who are not that in tune with hip hop.
Well, there's going to be a learning curve in the show. Because,
show, right.
I'm more of a hip hop person, surprisingly enough, to some people than I am a Marvel and a comic book person. I love the movies.
Right.
I'm a movie mark. It's one of my favorite things, movies and music. I'm not that educated on comics as I am hip hop. I could blow your mind.
Let me tell
stuff,
let me tell you, hip hop Marvelites. When I first met this guy, I was interning in this very building.
Yeah,
we're
right
in
here at
now.
the radio station.
Yeah, it was how long ago was it? It had to be around like 06.
Oh, it was at least
06, 07.
Yeah,
around that time. Yeah,
8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I was interning here, and Brent and I, we started talking, and we found the conversation leading into hip hop. And I'm like, whoa, like this guy knows his stuff. I don't judge a book by its cover.
Sure.
I don't. But like he said, like the average person wouldn't think that he knows about hip hop the way he does.
My cover is very, very white.
He definitely knows his hip hop. And, you know, we would talk for hours about, you know, different albums, different MCs.
I remember the point where you noticed it, actually. It was MySpace. Does anyone remember MySpace?
Oh, my
I remember
gosh.
MySpace. This is what happened. You went on my MySpace, and my little, like, you remember where you could add like a tagline or whatever? I put mood music.
Yes, that's what it was.
And
exactly.
I remember you
Joe
trying
Budden.
to make the connection, Joe Budden. And because I'm a huge Joe Budden fan, he's one of my favorite MCs of all time.
And this guy had no idea he lived around the way. You know, I'm from Jersey City, Hip Hop Marvelites.
And you know Mouse. I remember you
Right.
saying and mentioning to me that, and you said, "Oh, Mouse, yeah, I know Mouse."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? You know Joe Budden?
Yeah.
Oh my god!"
Yeah, man.
Then they revived me.
That was back in my rapping days. We found ourselves rapping on stage.
I've
different
never
times and-
heard a
and
verse
different,
of yours.
in different ciphers. What was that?
I've never heard a verse of yours.
Oh Lord.
Come to think of it,
Maybe I'll dig in the archives and pull out something in a future show.
that would be great. That would be great.
The fact that we've been embraced by the rappers themselves. I mean, Killer Mike was the first one to tweet in support, but we've had DMC, Pete Rock was a friend of mine. You know, we've had who else? But we've had everybody. Nas parted the clouds and gave it its blessing. You know, that speaks volumes about this. And you know, and again, the thing about it, and you know, hip hop is there being critics early on. There were some critics, very vocal critics, saying, you know, this is cultural appropriation, and you guys don't know hip hop, and making all sorts of assumptions. There were people that put out this myth that there were no black artists working on these, which is just patently false. It's just crazy. There's so many artists from around the world working on these books, healthy representation of African American artists doing these. The thing here is that I've always seen, you know, I've been in comics for 22 years, right? And I grew up with hip hop. It's in my blood, right? And for me, you know, I would just notice there'd be artists or editors, and you can just kind of tell they're into hip hop too, and we'd find ourselves on the sidelines talking about it. And as hip hop has become more and more popular, we're less ghettoized. This is a moment now where you're seeing people who grew up in the culture now. We're adults now. We can influence culture. For me, these hip hop covers are an opportunity to turn that dialogue between Marvel Comics and hip hop, which has been a whisper, into a shout. That's what we want to do here.
Hip Hop Marvels, man. I'm so excited that we're finally here. The first episode.
It's so cool because we're combining, like, you know, I had my show and still have it, Jacked Up Radio TV, highoflife.com, and I've been wanting, and I remember us talking about it for so long, like working together, and we put out a mixtape that I had, the Underground tapes.
Right.
That's on Dat Piff. I'm going to shamelessly plug my stuff too.
Right.
But yeah, and you mixed it, and it was such a fantastic album.
Hosted by Lil White. Shout out to Lil White, too.
Lil White. We had Fiend on there. Man, that was such a great song. It was called Fans. And,
Right.
I've been wanting to work so long with you guys for like a big project, and this is it. This is bigger than I could have ever imagined. And I think it's gonna continue, you know, out the stratosphere. So,
yeah, this is definitely the start of something new, the start of something fresh, and something
different.
Different,
because,
exactly.
I'm so sick of the same old thing. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up. I was talking about on Facebook earlier, and I know me and you already talked about it, but the one thing, I was scrolling through my timeline and I saw this new project by a rapper, and his album art was just a picture of him as a kid.
You voiced your opinion on Facebook about that situation.
Yeah, this bothers me a lot because, I mean, it was, like I said, on Facebook and social media, I put it on Twitter, it was original when Nas did it, and it was original when Biggie did it.
Right.
But now everyone's doing it, and it's just like people are copying out creatively. And what they're doing is they're breaking into their grandma's photo album, and they're pulling out these pictures.
They're pulling out. You know, they're pulling out those throwback Thursdays. That's
exactly.
They're pulling out those throwback Thursdays and, like, you know.
Yeah, and they're going to MS Word Paint, and they're just typing in their little title, and I hate it. It's not creative. It's not interesting. It's.
I feel you on that.
And why? What's the purpose? I mean, I don't understand it. So you were once a little kid, and now you've grown to see the world as it really is. We all have. I mean, that's nothing new or shocking or different or original or creative. I'm sorry.
Right. No,
that's just my opinion. I'm very passionate about this, so I really get into this stuff. But
no, and I knew you were. You know, I seen that Facebook post, and I was like, wow, that's, you know, that's a valid. He has a valid point there. I've been seeing some floating around, so yeah.
I mean, straight up to Lil Wayne. I mean, that was finally the last straw. I love that album. What was it? The Carter 4, I think.
Yeah,
it was a great
yeah
album, but the cover, man. I mean, maybe it was an ode to Biggie and Nas. I really don't know, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I just had to go ahead and bring that up. It's been weighing on my mind heavily all day.
Yeah, well, speaking on hip hop, what's your hip hop Marvel origin story? Like, what was the first track or album you ever heard or purchased that absolutely made you say, you know what, this is a genre of music I can get into? That
cemented me into the path that
right.
I'm walking on right now.
Right.
It was Silk the Shocker. Charge It to the Game. No Limit Records.
Wow.
I believe it was 1997, if I'm not mistaken.
Silk the Shocker.
Silk the Shocker. Man, I'll tell you what happened. I was in Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster?
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, Blockbuster video and music. And I was in there with my stepbrothers. And I was looking at the records, the CDs. And the album art, speaking of album art, that's a perfect transition, and I just realized it. That's what grabbed my attention, was the album art.
And see, there we go. There's another point as to why hip-hop and Marvel are totally alike.
They are, because if you think about it, now that I'm thinking about it, the No Limit covers back then, they had all these cool graphics. Like the Snoop Dogg, what was it called, the record that he did with them? The game is to be sold, not to be told.
Right.
But anyway, I was in Blockbuster. I saw the Silk the Shocker record, Charge It to the Game. And I asked my stepbrothers, I was like, man, this looks like a cool record, is it? And they're like, yeah. These three little white kids that are like 13, 14. So I got my great-grandma to buy this record for me. I hid my thumb. I used my thumb to cover the parental advisory label.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. That was that was how good I was at it, or she just wasn't paying attention. But I bought the record and I went home and I listened to it. And I had no idea about anything hood related, guns, drugs, whatever in the hell. But I listened to it and I fell in love, man. Before that, it was strictly country that I was raised up on. A little bit of, my mom loved Guns N' Roses and, some rock and stuff like that, which I still love. I still love some of the old rock stuff. I still got a little bit of country left in me. You can even hear it in my voice, unfortunately, as hard as I've tried to shake it. But that day, I fell in love with hip-hop, man. And I was a no-limit soldier, was what I thought. I went and bought the jerseys, the everything, man. I was just...
That's awesome.
It took over, and ever since then, it's just been hip-hop, man. I love hip-hop. I will always love hip-hop. I don't care if I'm 80. I'm still going to be listening to hip-hop and whatever futuristic device we have.
Mine goes back some. The first album that I heard was BDP, Boogie Down Production, Criminal Minded.
Ooh.
And it was the cassette. And at the time, I was staying with my grandfather. And my uncle, he stayed there as well. So he had a lot of cassette tapes and a shoebox. I want to say like a shoebox under his bed. And like when he would leave, I would sneak and, go through his stuff. I got this box. And there were a couple. I remember seeing like "Long Live the Kane," Big Daddy Kane's album.
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing Rock Box in there. I mean, he had a lot of cassettes. Oh, Public Enemy was another one. It Takes a Nation of Millions. That was another one that was in there. Mm-hmm. So, Criminal Minded, I picked that up and I was like, man, this is crazy. This is popped it in the cassette deck, man, and the beats on this thing, man, the beats and the way KRS rhymed and how he, formulated his rhymes, man, it just intrigued me to the point to where I was like, yo, this is really different from what my mom played on Sundays or my mom played, the different soul music she used to play, and I can get with this. So it was like from that point on, pretty much my music of choice was hip hop. Mm. I listened to the lyrics, the beat. It just spoke to me, man.
And isn't it weird how it can bring together, like, our stories are vastly different,
right?
But it's brought us together this day. Like that's what hip hop can do. Different races, backgrounds, and everything. I mean,
hip hop is universal, man. And just like Marvel, man, there's so many different characters, and especially now in today's day and age, there's a lot of diversity there's been some backlash of the different character changes and stuff like that. Because right now you have like a female Thor, Captain America's black, you have a Pakistani, 16-year-old girl from Jersey City who's Miss Marvel. I mean, you can go on and on.
But at the end of the day, this stuff is bringing people together.
Yes.
Regardless of backlash. You go in to a movie theater, to a Marvel movie, you're going to find people of all backgrounds and races.
Right.
You go and check the logistics of an album sell or an album download, since that's what's mostly happening with records these days.
Yeah.
And you're going to find people from all over the world and all over ethnicities. Yeah. And it just brings people together, and it's a great thing.
Hip-hop is universal, and that's what we're trying to... That's basically Hip-Hop Marvels in a nutshell, man. It's just bringing people together, sharing that dialogue, man, and showing that, these two entities respect each other.
So we've been talking about the core and the background of us, and about, what hip-hop and Marvel has done for people and bringing people together and whatnot. Let's talk about some new stuff, like some stuff that's currently ongoing, if you're up for that. I mean, like, we've got a bunch of different topics, I think, that we can talk about.
So what were you saying about Hip Hop DX?
It was on Hip Hop DX, as well as like DJBooth.net, and they were talking about how it was almost like a hip-hop Easter egg that, everyone's always wondered, like Eminem saying at the beginning of the track, like, there's no snare in my headphones. And it turns out that Eminem did an interview, and there was no snare, so he said it to the engineer, and the engineer put it in, and he decided later, after the fact, to leave it in, and that's how that whole thing came about.
Wow.
And that was on DJBooth.net and Hip Hop DX and a bunch of stuff, but yeah, that was like an actual thing that happened. It wasn't just like a
little hip-hop Easter egg. That's crazy, because comparing hip-hop to Marvel, and a lot of Marvel comic books and the movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are a lot of Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one thing they have in common, hip-hop Easter eggs and Marvel Easter eggs. That's awesome. That's dope. I like that.
Well, there's a lot of little facts. I mean, it's just always cool to hear, behind-the-scenes stuff, and a lot of it's improv, and it sounds so perfect and fits, just like a jigsaw puzzle that you wouldn't even believe that it's made up on the spot, but it is. And
yeah, that's crazy, man.
So I always like those little interesting tidbits that are, that you find out after the fact, but it's awesome.
Right, yeah, that's so dope. How about that Captain America Civil War trailer? How about that? Man,
I can't wait. It looks amazing. There's just so many people, so many characters in it. And I don't know much about the background either. Like I said earlier, I'm not that much of an aficionado.
Right.
So, but I mean, I know that I've seen all the Marvel movies and, even the original X-Men Origins movies and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to see this movie. I think everyone on the planet is, except, for the people that don't like stuff because everyone else does.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think everyone's excited.
Yeah, this movie looks so dope. And I know we're a little late touching on the topic. I think they're calling that the final trailer, but man,
it was.
I mean, from beginning to end, and when they revealed Spider-Man at the end, that suit, I think that's one of the dopest Spider-Man suits. And don't get me wrong, I like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2. I think that was a tough film. I think it's pretty dope. I wasn't too fond of the costume.
Oh, really?
It just didn't do it for me.
What's the big deal with the costumes and the specificity, if that's even a word, that's paid attention? Because
it's attention to detail. I mean,
there's a lot of art and stuff, articles and stuff that talks about and focuses specifically, on this. And I'm wondering if I can yank someone's nerd card here and find out, explain to me. I legitimately want to know, what is the importance? I mean, of course, you've got to stick true to the comics and stuff, but I'm looking at all these different Spider-Mans, and
they all look the same to you.
They do, with very little minor detail.
Right. I could see that for a Marvel comic reader. They pay attention to detail.
Yeah.
And with this new Spider-Man suit, number one, Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, after they reached that deal with Sony, they decided to make Spider-Man a 15-year-old boy that's in high school. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. So now they got this aspect of this younger guy.
So this is the current, just to make sure that...
This is the current Spider-Man right now.
Is a high school 15-year-old.
Right.
Okay.
So I think it's going to work great with the dynamic between him and the Avengers because he's the only the youngest one.
Yeah.
So with that said, as far as the suit, if you look at the suit, like if you look at the old Tobey Maguire films or even the recent ones with the two with Andrew Garfield,
there's a color difference.
There is a color. Yeah, there is a color difference too.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
Right. There is a color difference. I think the red is like a little brighter.
Yeah.
More vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
I was checking out a lot of breakdowns on YouTube and stuff about the.
I watched
the
one,
suit.
And that's why I was wondering,
Right.
and it posed the question like, wow, people put a lot of effort and time into studying this stuff.
Yeah, no, I love it. One of the things that they broke down was the fact that about the eyes.
Yeah.
The eyes,
the narrow, the little slits and everything.
Right, and they look sort of like camera lenses.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I think that's great to show emotion. They did that with the Deadpool movie, and we'll talk about that in here in a few.
Deadpool, yes, absolutely.
But they did that with the Deadpool movie, and I think that aspect is going to add a lot too. So that's something very different because if you look at the old Spider-Man movies, even the ones out in the past 2 years or whatever with Andrew Garfield, those eyes they were just fixated. You know what I mean? They didn't move. So if he felt some type of emotion,
you couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell, right? So even in this trailer, when he pops up at the end and says,
"Hey," I know he says, "Hey guys,"
hey guys, or hey everyone. But his eyes, you can see it move, and
they're sort of narrow, I believe, too.
Right.
What was the line? I watched the trailer a few times, and I kept trying to figure out what Tony Stark said right before you see the web shoot out. What does he say?
He says underoos. So I don't know if you remember back in the day, there were like this company, they made like underwear with Spider-Man and different superheroes on them, and they called them underoos.
Yeah.
So, my guess is that, because they say Spider-Man is supposed to have two different suits. Like one suit he's supposed to make himself.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Right, and then Tony is supposed to upgrade the suit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the suit that he had on in the trailer is the upgraded version or the first version. I would like to think that it's the upgraded version.
By the way, potential spoilers.
Yeah, I would like to think that it's the upgraded version. Reason being because if you're a 15-year-old boy, and yes, Peter Parker is smart, but if you're a 15-year-old boy, I don't think you're going to come up with a concept for a suit that great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like right off the bat.
You're not thinking about the $300 million budget that went into this film. You're trying to be a superhero.
Right. I like how they did it in the trailer. It's like I think Tony said something along the lines of I done waited long enough for him. My patience is,
My patience is wearing thin.
Something like that. And then he says underoos, and then that's when Spider-Man.
Yeah, I've been trying to. I watched it 3 or 4 times, and I just got lazy and was just like, oh, I'll see it in theaters.
So my guess is the reason why he's calling him underoos, number one, because he's young.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And number two, maybe that first suit kind of resembles some like underoo, like underwears, or like, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Some cheap underoo looking type of costume that he made, and he was like, look, I'm going to have to upgrade this. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm thinking he said underoos,
Is it just me? But I don't know. I like Iron Man and Tony Stark in this version better than any other Marvel character that's new out there right now. I like him better than the Thor movies, than Captain America. And now I like them all. I really do.
Right.
But for some reason, Robert Downey Jr. just...
Man, he sells that.
He nails it. He personifies what a real-life superhero should be.
I agree. Not only is Iron Man my favorite superhero, but it's him.
It is.
Like, if I was to walk up to him, Tony might slip out.
Exactly. I would think Iron Man. And usually when you see big movies like this, you see the person themselves and not the character a lot of times.
Right.
That's not the case with Robert Downey Jr. You see Iron Man. Are you a comic book artist or writer? The Battlegrounds Games and Comics are looking for those interested in participating in their free Comic Book Day Artist and Writer Alley on May 7th. If you have any published work, this is an opportunity to display and sell your work while hundreds of guests take advantage of a meet and greet with the opportunity to obtain a signature from you. If you're interested in this opportunity, please contact the Battlegrounds Games and Comics at 706-259-9704. That's 706-239-9704.